Hello, hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. We are here today with Mark Foreman, and we're going to talk about how he was able to grow his YouTube channel in just a few weeks. And so I'm super excited to have Mark here with us. He is a mindfulness teacher, a mindful photography enthusiast, and he's really doing some wonderful work in the world to help people of all sorts, but namely those in the helping professions, in how to just live a life of less stress and more presence and more awareness. And so when I learned that Mark was able to successfully grow his YouTube channel like this, I thought this would be great inspiration for those of you who maybe have been considering the same. Maybe you have a message in your heart that you really want to share with people, and maybe you've thought about doing video, but you're not quite sure if it works for you or how you could actually grow your reach with this. So I'm excited for Mark to share about how he was able to do it, and we welcome any questions and comments in the chat as well. So Mark, welcome. Can you tell us a little more about who you are, what you do, and how you came up with the idea to even start a YouTube channel?
Oh, that's a lot. Yeah, thanks, Simone.
Yeah. Let's start with who you are and what you do.
Yeah. Thanks for inviting me on here for sure. So I'm Mark Foreman. I live in a little pocket down in the Southwest United States, in Southern California. I've been down here since the 60s. I consider myself fully retired as far as careers and whatnot. I was a police officer for 30 years. But before that, I set the intention to be a psychologist. So when I retired from the police department, I went to graduate school and got my doctorate in forensic clinical psychology. And along the way, I stumbled into mindfulness. I think I'd always dabbled with it for a long time, since the 1970s. Nothing serious, no formal training. But then circumstances brought me into UCSD's Center for Mindfulness, and I met Ellen Goldstein and Megan Prager and many others up there, Steve Hickman, and took the classes, 8-week MBSR course. And so much of my personality is to keep doing more and more. So I became a teacher, took the training courses, continue to pursue it as far as a way of being, I guess. That the way I approach mindfulness is that, in essence, that's what it is it is a way of being. It's not a thing we do. It's what we are and what we have the capability of becoming. So along that path, I worked as a clinical psychologist for 6 years, working specifically with a population of first responders. And then I decided that I'm going to do something different. And then along comes the pandemic. And then during the pandemic, I discovered photography. I've been taking pictures since the 70s. I've got a camera sitting over here on my bookshelf that's several decades old. But I got a new digital camera, and I discovered that I've got a creative characteristic of myself I never knew was there. And I've allowed it to kind of unleash I won't say unleash the Kraken, because that might have a negative connotation, but so I allow that to show up. And then I discovered that the similarities between photography and mindfulness are inseparable, that they're right there. My mindfulness practices help me be present while I'm taking a photo. And most of my photographs are nature photographs, but not all of them. But it allows me to start connecting with other people in a way that I didn't know that I was open to and capable of. For me, photography started opening me to an area of authenticity and vulnerability, not only my own, but of maybe whatever I'm taking a photo of, whether it's a human or whether it's an animal. So oftentimes an animal will look me in the eye through the lens, and there's something there. I feel it. And I've heard other photographers describe something similar. So I started doing something like that. And I know you asked Simona, well, what about this YouTube channel thing? I'd like to say it was total accident. I'd started one channel while I was still working as a therapist, and it was called Sing to the Mountain Studio. It was my private thing. It had nothing to do with the clinical work per se. It was more of the idea of me as a therapist sometimes using the metaphor of a mountain. I could be the mountain, or each of us as humans could be a mountain, depending on which metaphors we want to bring into it. And people would come in and they would sing to me. And then I was inspired for the name by a song by a band called Elephant Revival. The name of the song was Sing to the Mountain. And it's fully around mindfulness practices and awakening and being and concepts like that. And it resonated with me. So that's why I named it. Then the pandemic came along. So much of the world was in lockdown or shut down or just kind of withdrawing inward. I would go out to a local park. There's a nature preserve that's a city park here in San Diego, 8,000 acres. And I would just wander around with my camera. And there's two mountains out there. They're not really mountains. Well, they qualify as mountains. They're not very tall. One's 1,200 feet and the other one's a little bit smaller, I think. But the idea of the world between two mountains gave me the inspiration then to run with a channel where I was creating photographs, documenting what was happening between these two peaks, Quaipai and South Fortuna. And it's the full human drama moves back and forth through that daily. People walking along, getting out to get away from something. Some are running to something. I'll hear people walk by as I'm taking a photograph of something, discussing relationship problems or work problems or their mental health, their own mental health or their friends' mental health, the family, their loss. They're discussing people that have died in their life, loss of pets. There's so much going on just at the human level, plus the nature just started emerging. And I've been working with that. And then, so that channel was called Sing to the Mountain Studio. It's got 237 subscribers as of today. It's doing okay. And to me, that was wonderful. And I wasn't putting work into it to try to get a subscriber, more as to, if I took a photo, I would share it. I would get feedback. Hey, we really like your photos. Can we have more? It was this sort of thing. It was very organic. It still is. It's very organic to let it go.
It's more of a creative outflow and just being able to share it with the world.
Absolutely. It's not to do anything with it per se. And a couple of people would let me know either through social media or if I saw them on the trail, they would come up to me and they go, "Oh, you're Mark. I see your pictures. I love those. You have no idea how that maybe impacts my day or something."
Wow.
And it really drove home the point for me that we never know the impact we have on people. People we never even see. Sometimes we can have an impact on them just by how we show up.
Yeah.
So while all that's going on, I also I've been a participant on LinkedIn for a long time, professionally, whatnot. And I continue to maintain the connections. And I see a lot of dialogue, a lot of back and forth around a lot of good work that's going on around the entire globe in the area of business and first responders and the caring professions, doctors, nurses, therapists, mindfulness teachers for sure are in that category. So I have this circle of connections on LinkedIn, and there's a lot of discussion around burnout and compassion fatigue and these things, which was one of the types of topics that would show up in the therapy room, was the topics of burnout from clients, etc. So that's sort of prompted me to say, well, what's getting in the way of doctors and nurses or therapists or police officers or firefighters from avoiding burnout? What is it that they're doing that's taking them down this burnout path? Because apparently we all love everybody. We're full of compassion. We want to go out and change the world somehow. Yet we're burning out. That then brings in some other things. And that's how I come up with the name of Lower the Shield.
Mm-hmm.
We lower the shield, and mindfulness practices totally allows us then, the shield's a metaphor that we can come inside, get beyond our shields, come inside and experience ourselves in our relationship with ourselves, with the world, and then with others, or whatever order that feels right. So the lower the shield is kind of like pull the shield down once in a while, allow the compassion to flow back and forth, self-compassion. So many people in the helping professions won't be self-compassionate.
Mm-hmm.
They're full of compassion for others, but bringing it inward, it's not the same as exercising and eating well and that sort of thing. It's like there's something else in addition to all of those things, that as we lower our own shields, our own defenses, allow ourselves to be vulnerable to ourselves, something happens and allows us to then go back out and do more of helping the world.
And the thing is, it's not widely taught at all. And so many people just aren't aware of how to practice it. And I love that you've been able to combine all of your experience, everything that you've done, from being in the first responder role to then looping back into actually helping people on this inner level, to now helping them see the importance of that inner level and mixing it with the creative aspect and sharing it in that way. I just think that's so beautiful.
So just the way you summarized it, Simone, is it's only recently landing on me and impacting me that I bring so much of myself to it, and it starts to come into an intersection, an integrated way of showing up. So to disregard my cop experiences wouldn't be appropriate. It's so much of my interaction with what humans have the ability to do to each other informs me on the compassion, on my compassion. But then also the awareness that I've wanted to be a psychologist for over 40 years, make it, and then I decide, well, I'm not going to do therapy anymore. I'm going to be a photographer, I'm going to be a mindfulness teacher. It's like those experiences all come together as one, as well as any other aspects I have of myself, of being a father, a husband, a community member, all these different layers, all these different stories.
All the shields, right? All the roles that sometimes we have to put on a role or a shield to play a particular role, but underneath that, we're still this presence that is just showing up in different aspects.
So what I've come to do is come to appreciate that I can bring it all together sometimes as one, and then show up as authentically and as vulnerable as I'm willing to go. And right before we started, just when we were kind of taking care of the necessary details, I commented that I have a light behind me and that there's a curtain hanging behind me. So even now, this is what I decide to show to the world. It's not all of me. It's part of me. But it's not all of me. And we all do that. We all will pick and choose what we wear, how we decorate our room around us when we come on, I was going to say teletherapy. when we come onto a platform like LinkedIn or Zoom or FaceTime or any of the other ones, we pick and choose. That's how we show up in the world. And it's protective. So lowering the shield requires a vulnerability, and mindfulness is a way of accessing that vulnerability, pulling it up to a way that we can tolerate it, so it's not overwhelming, so that it's useful, and then maybe raising the shield again when we need it back up, or maybe bringing a different one. Some are translucent, some are transparent, some are impermeable. So, yeah.
And especially in those helping professions, like I feel like they have to navigate putting up the shield in order to protect themselves so they could do their job well. But at the same time, that human connection is super important, especially in today's world, in order to serve people on another level. So it's like this almost dance between knowing when to protect ourselves so we can serve, and also knowing when to open up so we can serve, because both are necessary in order for us to experience our common humanity. And I love that, again, you're bridging these two worlds that people don't think can be in common, but you can't have one without the other. You can't have, your shield up all the time and fully show up for others or for yourself. And you also can't always just be sharing and open, because then you're not going to cultivate that courage, maybe, and that strength to show up even fully when needed.
Yeah, and it's beautiful that you just used the term dance as you were describing that, which is going to take me into Lower the Shield and something that allowed the Lower the Shield channel to blast off in subscribership. But that balance of bring it down, bring it up. Don't bring it fully down, keep it partially up. However it is for each of us in our scenarios is healthy. It'll fuel our mental wellness. It'll protect us. Those sorts of, that dance of knowing, there is a knowing of, I have a shield up versus shields up. I'm in an impenetrable wall. You're not getting in. I'm not going to allow any emotions to come in, and I'm not going to let any out either. That can be a lonely place to be over time. Can take us down to a path of mental unwellness and maybe even to suicide, which is part of the chatter that's been so prevalent on the social platforms. So that while I was sitting at home during the pandemic, I discovered YouTube has a particular genre of creators, and it's reactors. There'll be a reactor that'll react to almost anything. They'll react to movies, to songs, to interviews. Somebody might say, well, let's do a reaction to Mark and Simona talking. But the ones I was watching were mostly to classic rock. Pink Floyd, one of my favorite bands, but classic rock. And it'd be younger people in their 30s and 40s discovering classic music for the first time. And they were being moved by it. I was noticing the emotion they would start to feel, and then they would allow it to be seen on the platform. So a few months ago, there's a young performer. He's from Wales. He's Welsh. He goes by the name of Ren, R-E-N. A video that he had created called Hi Ren, and it's all about mental wellness. And in that, it's his dance, and he names it as a dance in the song, though. So when you mentioned dance, it went right to he's talking to his various ego states, to his different parts. He's got one aspect that's extremely harsh, and another one that is wanting to perform music and change the world, make the world a better place. And they're having this dialogue. And it went viral. The viewers on the song took off, but a lot of the reactors started reacting to it, and they were having reactions. It was so moving. It's not really a song. It's a performance, and it was moving people at a deep level. So what I did is I did my own video, and it wasn't a reaction to the song of Hi Ren. It was my explanation of possibly why so many people are being moved by the performance of Hi Ren. And I was getting into the psychology of it and whatnot. Unbeknownst, at the time, there were 17 subscribers on that channel. And as soon as it went live, or wasn't live, as soon as I posted it, then the subscribership just started going through the roof. And the comments I was getting is, thank you for your authenticity. Thank you for being you. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for helping us understand what it is that we're feeling.
Wow.
And isn't that what mindfulness is all about, is helping guide people to a place that maybe they're not comfortable going, that they would start. The reactors were low in their shields, and they didn't know that they were coming down. And
Mm.
They become speechless. They would start having these somatic responses on camera, and they would sometimes, some they describe them, some would just shut the camera off and come back once they change or something. So that's, I stumbled into it, and now it's like the fire hose is open. That the world is wanting to experience their emotions in a place that's safe, in a way that's safe for them. They can lower their shield. They can bring it back up when they push stop. Some are asking for other and I've done several videos now, and I'm continuing to produce some. But all around with this psychological lens and the mindfulness lens that I'm having the discussion around whatever the topic is.
So I love that this was based on an interaction with another human being, with another human creation. You know, that sometimes we feel like in order to be creators, like we constantly have to create our own thing, like something very new that's never been done. But sometimes what can impact people just as much is if we acknowledge another person's creation and then we give our unique perspective on it, which in itself is a unique creation, that perspective on it. And being able to help people delve into deeper layers on something that they might not even ever consider. So I love that this was like almost a collaboration, and that then sparked people to see your unique perspective and to enjoy that, and then to follow you for more stuff that you put out. So that's how you think you gained like the biggest spike in subscribers was from that, and then people were interested in also watching your other videos?
It's still a mystery to me. I try not to put too much of my own questioning as to why, allowing it. And there was a sudden flurry. So that one video that I did now has over 52,000 views on it.
Wow.
That just blows my mind that over 52,000 people have at least paused for a little while in their life to listen to a little bit of what I said. Some of them have listened all the way through.
Yeah. Imagine if this was in person. Like sometimes I don't think people can, you know, because you hear these numbers and you're like, yeah, 52,000. I mean, it already is huge. But if you were to imagine that you're actually like speaking in front of 52,000 people, like what an impact. So first of all, like this is so great.
So back to the mindfulness, this is where my practices allow me to do my own dance of pulling into awareness that, like, for instance, while you and I are having this dialogue here, we're on opposite sides of the planet.
Mm-hmm.
And yet it can be as though it's happening now and we're sitting in the same room.
Mm-hmm.
That the ability for my mind to hold those two spaces as though it's happening now. And the reality is by the time I hear your voice and you hear mine, time is already gone. We're not in the moment anymore.
Right.
So that's a deep practice that when I've taught people how to do this, and whether it was in the therapy room or even suggesting it through mindfulness practice, it opens us up to the ability to start to balance things and to find this center and to come back into the now, to say, this is happening, but I'm here now, all at the same time. It opens us up to the metaphors of paradox and some other concepts around that. But it's the way we move through the world anyway. We're constantly stepping in and out of a now moment into the past or the future. And so that idea, because I've thought of it, 52,000 people was the population of the small town I live in. Well, it's not so small by some standards around the world, but when I first moved here, it was at 52,000. It's like talking to every citizen around, all my neighbors all at the same time. But it's not all at the same time. It's whenever they choose to come in and listen. And that's what we have here is whoever's listening now, but whoever chooses to listen to you and I have a chat, or doesn't choose. It is what it is.
Yeah, and it's something that's created in the moment, but that lives on, like when you think about, we don't know how many people are going to be impacted by this conversation, maybe days, weeks, months from now. And it all stems from just one present moment at a time. First, you showing up, you creating the channel, and then us, finding our way to each other thanks to Alan and his group. And then here, like how every step goes into the next and it all unfolds right now. And I love how you mentioned in the beginning, you never know what an impact you're going to have just by showing up. And I think from my world of marketing, the way I look at helping individuals and businesses reach people, it's that you just show up for the people that you want to help. And sometimes it might feel like there's a struggle between how do I show up authentically, how do I lower my shield and show up as myself, versus how do I have a strategy and a system in place to show up. And I think it shows that both can work, that it's either or, and that you can show up as yourself in the present moment with what you're experiencing. And that itself can be enough to cause change and to spark happenings that you might not anticipate would happen. And it's because of not being afraid to just share. And sometimes that can be the hardest part. So from your standpoint, from lowering the shield, if there's someone watching this who would love to just pursue, something that they've been passionate about, like let's say photography, and they think, oh, nobody's going to watch this, or nobody really cares about my personal stuff or my story or my perspective on things, which is something that sometimes I even experience. I'm like, oh, who's actually going to read this or listen to this? How can people lower that shield to be able to open up and just share, knowing that others will see it and being okay with whatever happens next?
So that's the question, isn't it? Is so much of it starts to get into this existential space of who are we? Each of us can ask our own selves, who am I? Why do I exist? And we can start teasing off these layers to come inward, so that when we produce something, the motivation, it goes, for me, it actually goes a little deeper than intention of to what is fueling this creation? Where's it coming from? And, we can go back all the way to each of our ancestors, and that we're influenced across generations, all of our life experiences, just as I was describing it, all these different sides of me present, create something. And then, okay, now something's getting in the way. I don't want to release it. No, I do want to release it, but if I release it, I'm afraid it's not going to be loved. It's not going to be liked. It's going to be criticized. I'll be criticized. Oh, here comes our shame. We shield up while we're trying to get stuff out there. We created something, and then we go. And some people call it an imposter syndrome sometimes. I've experienced that. People say, well, that's a wonderful photo that you got. It's just a picture of a bird. Oh, no, it's a one. Or thank you for being my therapist. You really helped. I'm just doing my job. As a police officer, firefighters do this, doctors do this all the time. I'm just doing my job. And there's something that gets in the way. So it's finding that space of trust, inner trust, to let it go. Artists go through this oftentimes of releasing their creations. I talk to painters sometimes, or other photographers that never share it publicly for whatever reason. They create it, and they're very skillful and very, very creative, but they don't let it go out into the world. And then others let everything go into the world. As you were kind of framing that question, and you mentioned the niche, when I started Lower the Shield, my intended audience was going to be like people on LinkedIn. But that's not where the floodgates open. The floodgates opened up to people that aren't on LinkedIn. And I found that amazing, that they hurt just like everybody else. I'm thinking first responders and healers and doctors and nurses and teachers and the people that are in the caring professions. And there's a whole global community also who, because we're all human, are also experiencing things, and they found it and they've latched on. So just because I think I know what I'm aiming at doesn't mean I have the right niche. And what do I do with that? So I'm still not sure what I do with that. As to, I did all this work, I have a whole career and all and I want to help other helpers. Is it enough for me to help everybody or anybody that's open to? And am I doing anything? Is it just that I'm pontificating and sharing my opinion and somebody's listening and soaking it up?
And this is where market feedback is also, or audience feedback is so important, because like you mentioned, you just never know like who's going to resonate with your message. And so just showing up and sharing that message, then you get reactions, then you see where people are reacting, where people are coming in from, what are they asking around it, what more are they trying to figure out based on hearing your sharings. And that can then inform the next steps sometimes, so from from a marketing standpoint, I look at this as sometimes you have a rough idea of maybe who you want to reach or what you want to share, but it's not until you start putting it out there that you can actually get feedback from the people that you intended to help. But then you might find out, wait, those people or that platform isn't where those people are showing up. And so then if you try different things, then you see, oh, this is working. This is where people are hanging out. This is where people are reacting. And then you can adjust it if you wish to what is already stirring, or then you can choose to see, are there other ways that I can go to the original idea that I had? And it all lives within within this present moment choice of, what do I do about this? This is how it's unfolding. And okay, what is next? What feels right next?
Yeah. And the platforms, LinkedIn and YouTube, they're similar on how their algorithms work, but they're also very different on how they work. But both, as algorithms, as entities, are powerful at trying to reach out and suck somebody in and pull them to a place that maybe they're not wanting to go, not willing to go, not comfortable going.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed it over on the YouTube side, that as I reach 300 subscribers, all of a sudden I'm getting personalized emails from YouTube. Mm-hmm. Hey, way to go. And there's little celebrations and stuff. Well, YouTube doesn't know me. They don't know that I'm not all about that.
Yeah.
And then 500, yay. But it's a little late. They're a little late, actually. They're like, I'll reach the number and I'm already at 1,000, and they're sending me an email saying I made 500, way to go. LinkedIn does something similar. It'll send out little prompts and, hey, your post got so many impressions, etc. That's another shield for me as to, okay, well, what's it like? How does that land? What do I do with that? What's my intention to begin with? Mm-hmm. And for me, it's not to make money, and marketing is frequently around creating businesses and developing businesses and business ventures, etc., to get a cash flow going of some sort. Mm-hmm. That's not my motivation yet. Now that's the pool that YouTube is trying to give. You reached 1,000, you can now monetize. Don't have to, but you can. If you monetize, you get to do this, this, and this, which opens up to a bigger community. And that's enticing to say, well, there's more people that might want to benefit from what I have to present. So if I just monetize, maybe I get access to different people, more people. So there's a balance, and I'm still navigating that. I'm not quite sure what to do with it.
Yeah, that's something else to think about, is what is, if there is a goal, for someone out there who is thinking about starting a channel, what is the impact? Is it an impact in terms of reaching a certain amount of people, or is it an impact in driving people to another resource that someone's offering, or to a website, or to potentially working with someone one-on-one for those that do want to use it for the business side of things. So having that clear can then help process things as they unfold. Because if someone is, purely going into this as, I just want to share my message and I want to touch as many people as possible, then it might feel easier just to show up with no plan, no strategy, and just be there for the audience. And then the growth happens. And I think if someone has an intention of, oh, I want this to help me achieve another thing, then it might affect the way that they lower their own shield in showing up, because they might have pre-planned strategies and things like that in mind, which I don't think there's anything wrong with either approach. It's just knowing what your intention is and what you would love to see, and if it's just a creative flow, or if there is other aspects that are coming into part with it.
Yeah, because so much of the work I did when I was on the police department for several years, I worked in a unit where we would do administrative work for the department, and strategies, goal setting, all that was part of what we were doing. Is we were helping the department develop those sort of things. So I have a deep awareness and experience of creating goals, setting them out there, moving toward achieving them, etc. Most of my life was that way. Now I'm pretty much non-goal oriented by design, and things still come, things still happen. So I know what it's like on both sides. I know that goal setting is important in a lot of realms, but along with that, then comes an expectation, whether it's an expectation I set internally, or one that I allow to come in from external. This is back to what the shields can do, is they can help us navigate others' expectations of us, our expectations of us, our expectations of others toward us. It's like this another dance, because if we don't meet it, we're back in the shame zone. Brene Brown does so much talking around the shame, and I like to call it the shame zone. It's like we quickly have the ability to go there that, hey, Mark, do another video now. Ren has a new video out. We want you to analyze that one. And all of a sudden, I feel a little bit of an obligation, a sense of trying to please. Oh, isn't that the nature of what healers and helpers are all about, is pleasers going out? That could be harsh. So dancing around this in a way that is useful, not just for myself, but for the community, gets back to, isn't that what business is about to begin with? People leading companies are high achievers. They tend to be goal directed, and they know what they want, and they find a way to get there. Not always. Sometimes they stumble into it, and there's just a kind of a Midas touch that goes with it. But there's also a dark side to it if we don't pay attention. That's what the shields are for, is to investigate the dark side also, so we can put some light on it, bring it forward, and just know that it's here also. That if I do too much of this in one direction, I'm avoiding something else, and that might not be healthy.
Yeah, and that's where presence, mindfulness, and all the teachings you share are so important for people to be aware of and to be mindful of. And I think the way you portray it in some of your videos, for those of you who haven't had a chance to watch some of Mark's videos on Lower the Shield yet, he combines the photography and the guidance with in the videos, so that way you can really come into that moment and really pause and then see what arises. So those who might be in that burnout mode, like I think the people that you intentionally maybe set out to help, like those helping professions, can use this as the tool to bring them back into that state where they are okay with just observing and no longer feel like they have to, like, okay, I got to do this and this.
Yes.
So to conclude, if you had any words of advice, if there are people watching this who resonate with what you're doing and they're thinking, oh, I would love to do something similar and just share my insights with the world, are there any top takeaways that you would share with them on how they can do that, both from a mindset standpoint and from like a strategic standpoint, if they want to grow through video on first either YouTube or LinkedIn or any channel?
So on the first part of that, without strategy, I guess, is to possibly do some work inward with their own self, to have a sense as to what their intention is, just to want to do it, the intention to want to do it, even much less to start creating the account and turning it on and filming the first video or making the first podcast or however it is. Checking in with themselves on how it is that they've handled either people liking things, negative quality to some of the other platforms of, hey, somebody gave me a thumbs up. Hey, somebody gave me a little heart. It's like, that feels good.
A dopamine hit.
Versus, oh, somebody criticized what I had to say. Or what about the people that aren't saying anything? We don't know about the ones that don't bother to give a thumbs up, but they feel good. Oh, I got another follower. I got another subscriber. Oh, wow, that feels good. Oh, I lost one. Oh, that hurt a little bit. I wonder who decided they didn't want to play anymore. All of this is important because it's part of the platform of the dynamics of what we're engaging in right now. We're engaging with it. There's an addictive quality to the social media to begin with. This is another way of engaging with that addictive quality. So, I most of the creators that I follow on YouTube set an intention for themselves to read all the comments. But there's a point in their growth where they stop reading all the comments because they can't. There's just too many of them. I right now will check the comments several times a day and reply to some, give a thumbs up, like to most of them, just let them know that I got it. That's part of the engagement. It's very similar to if somebody walks in a door at a business in a brick and mortar location, somebody's there to greet them and say hi to them and shake their hand, smile at them. It's very similar to that. It's so important for us to create those connections. But to do it without awareness can actually take us down our own rabbit hole, contrary to what maybe even we're setting out to do. So that is some of the advice, is regularly checking in behind your own shield to say, okay, what's it like when I get a thumbs up or a like, or what's it like when I gain a new subscriber or lose a subscriber? Do I take it personally? Chances are it's going to be indicative of how your life has been up to this point to begin with, of how criticisms show up and that sort of thing. So this is where lowering the shield, that can't apply to all of us in all settings. It doesn't have to be around just healers or helpers. It can be in any setting, because we all wall off. We start forming them around 15 months and we just become experts at it by the time we're our age. So.
Great. Do we have any questions from the audience? If there's anyone out there listening who has any questions for Mark, feel free to drop your comments in the chat. And if not, then I definitely invite you to check out Mark's channel. It's at Lower the Shield on YouTube. I will drop a link in the comments when we post this recording. And Mark, any other ways that people can follow you or interact with you?
Well, they can also follow me here on LinkedIn if they're not already. Just look me up, Mark Foreman, and that's probably somehow connected to this also. I'm guessing.
you have a website you want to share or anything, or you want to direct people to your LinkedIn or YouTube channel if they want to learn more about what you're doing?
Right now, I don't have a website per se related to this, so it's just these two platforms, LinkedIn and YouTube.
Beautiful. All right, awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time, for
Thank you for
lowering the
having me.
shield with us, and for helping everyone that's on here, and for making an impact just by being you, by doing what you're doing.
And likewise for you. We're all in this together, aren't we?
We are. All right. Thank you, Mark. Thank you,
Thanks.
everyone.
Bye.